you said you kind of started your career and you did your first attribution model about 5 years ago, six. I was trying to keep track, but been a little while. And so your experience in that first attribution model, what did you learn? What did it look like? And if you were to go back and do it today, what would you do differently?
Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing that I learned is it's insanely complex. One thing that I realized is as whenever I talk to friends or talk to people who aren't in data, even other people that are in tech about, so what do you actually do? It's marketing attribution. What does that mean? Basically what that means is, what are we spending and what are we getting for it? And that sounds like it could be quite simple. And so I had to go through every single step of learning what attribution modeling is, because I think the first question people have, especially as a small company, who is, if you're somebody working at a small company and you're managing a marketing budget, the first question people often have is, why can't I just trust AdWords or Facebook? They're telling me this. Why should I have someone come in and build something custom? And I think these platforms are incentivized to inflate their numbers as much as possible. And if you are someone who is only advertising on Facebook, sure, you can get away with just trusting Facebook Ads Manager. But if you're someone who's running AdWords campaigns and Facebook campaigns and Twitter campaigns and LinkedIn campaigns, and you have affiliate marketing and you basically have everything going, none of these platforms are communicating with each other. And so if you're someone, if you pretend you're a customer and you interact with Facebook, and then you interact with Google, and then you end up converting, both of these platforms are going to take credit for that conversion. At the end of the day, you're going to double count, triple count, or quadruple count the number of conversions. And so the biggest thing that I initially learned is the purpose of marketing attribution models and how complex they can actually be, because then the philosophy comes down to who actually gets the credit, right? If I hit a Facebook ad and I hit an AdWords ad, which company actually gets the credit and why? And there is no source of truth. There is no Bible to follow when it comes to these questions. It's custom to the business that you're working for. And it's custom to how the nurture programs are, how you're actually running these marketing campaigns. And so it's a very hard to answer question that requires fundamental analysis to even begin to answer that. And so that was the second thing I learned is how hard to understand, or how hard to actually pitch to a VP of growth, hey, this is how we should do it, and here's why we think we should do it this way, because there's always going to be differing opinions. And then the third thing that I learned, and this was, my first introduction to large complex data sets, is there's no such thing as a clean data set ever. Every single data set, no matter how clean it is, no matter how well modeled it is, there's going to be more cleaning to do. And I think 80 to 90% of that initial building of that marketing attribution model was cleaning up the data in a sense that works for attribution. Because these data sets, whenever data engineers or analytics engineers are putting together a lot of these data sets, they're with the purpose of wide use and not specific use. And so that was thing 3. And then I think the fourth thing that I really learned is how complex spend data is to work with too. Because there's one thing about making sure that the spend data in the warehouse matches what you're seeing in AdWords and the finance teams are seeing at the company. But then there's so many things that break when you're trying to fully join all of this stuff together. So in DoorDash's instance, I don't remember how much they were spending. It was a lot of millions that they were spending. And so that's a lot of dollars to account for. And if they are a team that's actively using this data to make decisions as to how to optimize their spend, they want to make sure the numbers are as accurate as possible. And so it always comes down to what level of accuracy are we okay with? We know we have drop off here. We know we have drop off here. There's always pipeline issues popping up left, right, and center. And so I guess the moral of the story is it becomes very complex. It's something that seems like it should be an easy task, becomes more and more complex. It's like an onion. The more layers you peel back, the more complexity that you see, especially when it comes to a very granular level of people often want, what city am I spending money in? And what city am I getting conversions in? But one of the biggest problems a lot of companies face is not all of your spend is allocated on a city level. It's allocated on a national level. So what do you do then? Do you develop some form of a heuristic to allocate that money to a city level, or do you stick with national level spend? And so there's so many moving pieces, and there's so much complexity to building attribution models that it's what keeps it interesting too. actually finishes. And there's so many ways to do it, and there's so many ways to optimize what you've already built.
Jarry, I'm just kind of wondering, when you're building these complex models and trying to pinpoint what kind of return you're getting out of Saskatoon, how long do you expect the model to be valid? You're building this, you're putting all this effort in, you're adjusting for all these complexities and nuances. Do you go in saying this is going to work for the next year, 2 years, set a specific time frame? You have to like build it, let it run, see how it's working, and then continually adjust.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's always a game of adjusting, because marketing teams, and in my opinion, I think a good team is always adapting to the climate and environment and how things are changing. And marketing is always changing. It's a very unique field. I mean, right now with like iOS 15 and the IDFA diminishing, like that has been the most drastic change that we've seen in the last year to marketing. And so, or if you're launching a new kind of campaign, like there was a moment where if you're going from city level spend to more national level spend, that's going to be a change. And so I don't set a specific timeline in mind. We always have like data quality and monitoring dashboards that are just, it's like a very meta way of making sure that everything is actually tracking. And my goal as a data person is to catch these issues before the marketing manager comes to me with an issue. And so I don't have like a deadline or a time span in mind. And because I think it just ends up being like a weekly, a bi-weekly, monthly process of there's always tickets, there's always bugs, there's always things popping up. And so it never gets to the point that we think, oh, work is done. There's always something to work on, and there's always things to optimize.